The Lost Islamic History, Chapter 3 Part 3. Please subscribe to our channel for more free audiobooks. As the kingmakers of Medina, the rebels sought to appoint a new caliph themselves. Ali was the natural choice, as he was the most respected companion still alive and was related to the Prophet in two ways, as a cousin and son-in-law. Ali, holding on to the unwavering honor and justice that many of the closest companions were known for, initially refused to be appointed by people who had rebelled against the caliphate. He was eventually persuaded by other leading figures in Medina that he was the most qualified and best equipped to bring back peace to the Muslim world. As it turned out, however, no personality would be able to manage the crisis that the Muslim world stood at the precipice of. Ali's most pressing problem was dealing with the murderers of Uthman. There was popular sentiment in favor of punishing the rebels. Muawiyah even insisted that he would not pledge allegiance to the new caliph until steps were taken to punish the people who killed his cousin. But Ali, being as pragmatic as his predecessors, knew that to punish them would likely lead to his own assassination, as the rebels still controlled Medina. This would in turn force the Muslim world into a downward spiral of bloodshed that he was keen to avoid. Instead, he moved his capital to Kufa, in the fertile plain of Iraq, where support ran high for the embattled caliph. Many in Medina were disheartened by his resistance to bringing the rebels to justice, and soon a force gathered with the intention of convincing Ali to punish them. Led by two fellow companions, Talha and Jubair, and aided by the Prophet's widow Aisha, the army departed for Iraq to confront Ali. It is difficult to judge the intentions of Ali and his political opponents in their preparations for the coming conflict. On both sides there were people who were close to the Prophet and must have been aware of the severity of fighting among Muslims. Yet both sides believed themselves to be entirely correct in their ijtihad, or independent reasoning, regarding the correct course of action in dealing with the rebels. For Ali, punishing them was not politically feasible, as he believed the best solution was to move on and attempt to reunify the Ummah. For his opponents, reunification was impossible without fixing wrongs and sending the message that the caliphate could not be violated as it was during the siege of Uthman. Both arguments probably had elements of truth in them, but the political divisions that came from Uthman's death were too big for even the companions to solve. Disunity was inevitable. Eventually, in 656, the supporting armies of the opposing ideas met at a field near Basra, in southern Iraq. Some members of the opposition, including Talha and Jubair, met with Ali before the battle, hoping to avoid bloodshed. A tentative peace treaty was agreed upon by the leaders of the opposing sides, who were loath to see fighting between Muslims just over 20 years after the Prophet had been laid in his grave. Less pious-minded extremists on both sides still urged the soldiers to come to blows with each other despite the negotiations of their leaders. In the confusion, the two armies finally collided, each believing the other side had started the fighting. The Battle of the Camel, as it came to be known, was indecisive, with both sides taking on heavy losses. Talha and Jubair were both killed in the mayhem. Ali and Aisha escaped the battle unharmed, but were disheartened at the first battle between Muslims in history. Aisha retired back to her home in Medina, accompanied along the way by a military escort for her protection, appointed by Ali. She dissociated herself from politics until her death in 678. Despite this bloodshed, Ali's hold on the caliphate was still not secure. Muawiyah had remained neutral in the conflict between Ali and the dissenters. From Medina, but continued to withhold his allegiance until Ali punished his cousin's murderers. Ali could not effectively govern while one of the most powerful governors of the Muslim world did not submit to his authority. But he still held on to his position that punishing the rebels was not a priority and was not feasible in any case. This time, to prevent further bloodshed, he agreed to meet with Muawiyah to settle their dispute through arbitration. The two sides met at a site midway between Iraq and Syria, their respective bases of support, in 658. Exactly what happened at the negotiations and their outcome is difficult to judge through the fog of history. But it seems that the arbitrators favored a solution that removed both Ali and Muawiyah from power and resulted in the election of a new caliph. When results of the arbitration were announced to the opposing sides, a group of Ali's supporters decried the results, declaring, "Decision belongs to God alone," and refusing to accept the legitimacy of the arbitration itself. The group condemned Ali for allowing his political fate to be decided by mere humans capable of error. Their extreme political position morphed into an extreme religious position, in which they deemed any sinning human to be an unbeliever. After separating from the main body of Ali's supporters, they were given the name Khawariz or Kharijites, meaning the ones who left. The Kharijites went on to terrorize the Iraqi countryside, battling against anyone who disagreed with their fanatical positions. Meanwhile, Ali, who had rejected the results of the arbitration as being invalid, decided that his former supporters, who had now become the first in history to secede from accepted Islamic theology, could not be allowed to go about with their reign of terror. He assembled his army and confronted the opposition in the summer of 658, where the main body of Khariji support was destroyed. The movement continued in a more clandestine form, with the aim of removing both Hazrat Ali and Hazrat Muawiyah. An attempt to assassinate Muawiyah in Damascus by the Kharijites was unsuccessful, but they succeed in killing Ali. As he prayed the dawn prayers at the mosque in Kufa, an assassin stabbed the caliph, bringing his turbulent reign to a violent end. The caliphate fell to the only man left in the Muslim world with widespread support and the capabilities to be an effective leader, Muawiyah.